Therefore, the pilgrims lay in the cage for some time, and were made the objects of every man's ridicule or malice, the lord of the fair laughing at all that befell them. But the pilgrims, being patient, and not answering insult for insult, but rather a blessing, and returning good words for reproaches, and kindness for injuries done, some men in the fair who were more discerning, and less prejudiced than the rest, began to restrain and blame the examiners for their continual abuses to the pilgrims. They, therefore, in angry manner, railed at those who defended the pilgrims, counting them as bad as the men in the cage. They accused them of being traitors, and said that they should be made partakers of the pilgrims' punishments. Those who defended the pilgrims replied that for anything they could see, the pilgrims were quiet and sober-minded, and intended nobody any harm. They also said that there were many who traded in their fare, who were more suitable to be put into the cage, yes, and the stocks also, than were the men that they had abused. Thus, after various arguments had passed on both sides, the pilgrims all the while behaving themselves very wisely and soberly before them, the men fell to fighting among themselves, and harming one another. Then these two poor pilgrims were brought before their examiners again, and charged with being guilty of the hubbub that had been in the fair. So they beat them mercilessly, put them in chains, and led them up and down the fair, for an example and a terror to others, lest any should speak on their behalf, or join themselves unto them. But Christian and Faithful behaved still more wisely. They received the disgrace and shame which was cast upon them, with so much meekness and patience, that it won several of the men of the fair to their side. This put the persecuting party into yet a greater rage, insomuch that they sought the death of the two pilgrims. Therefore they threatened that neither the cage nor the chains were sufficient punishment, but that they should die for the harm they had done, and for deluding the men of the fair. Then the pilgrims were thrown into their cage again, until further action would be taken with them. So they put them in, and fastened their feet in the stocks. Here they remembered what they had heard from their faithful friend Evangelist, and were thence encouraged in their way and sufferings, by what he told them would happen to them. They also comforted each other, that he whose lot it was to suffer would have the advantage. Therefore each man secretly wished that he might have the honor of suffering. With much contentment, they committed themselves to the all-wise disposal of him who rules all things, until they should be otherwise disposed of.